Hello, and welcome to the FlowRy Show. On this show, we talk about where generations intertwine, sharing stories, insights, and dreams. Whether you are a seasoned sage or a curious young mind, we are all students in the grand classroom of life. Join me is my co-host, Mike Ryan, and I'm Nicole Flowers, as we explore a tapestry woven with threads of collaboration, dreams, and lessons learned along the way. In a few segments ago, we had a special guest, Dennis Boyle, who is also a returning guest on the show today. But I'll turn it over to Mike just to share some of the tidbits from our last conversation and some of the fun memories that he had over the years with Dennis and his partnership at IDEO. Mike?
Thank you, Nicole. I want to welcome Dennis Boyle, who I've known for probably about a decade or so. We connected through DocSF, which is the digital orthopedics conference that's put on every year. And during that time, it mostly has orthopedic surgeons, you expect, and other people that are in that part of the healthcare industry. And Dennis and his group, IDEO, would come in and actually do a condensed design thinking process. His background is quite extraordinary. He is a fellow Irishman that graduated from Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, as we're known as, and his background is as a mechanical engineer. He also has product design degree from Stanford, and according to LinkedIn, he's been at IDEO as a founding partner and member, and he will share a little bit like that on that as he did our last segment. But he's been there for 45 years and 6 months, that LinkedIn said. Now, he tells us it's more than 45 years. But regardless, he has transcended multiple generations, which we focus on, and really shared some great stories that I'll reference during this call of how they actually have had people come in as late as their late teens, as well as they hired an individual, Barbara, who was 89 years old. So that, to me, that covers almost 100 years, and she worked for them until she was 95. So with that, Dennis, welcome again to our second segment, and we're looking forward to exploring, your extraordinary career and what you've done to help organizations, companies, and develop everything from, as we talked last time, was the Apple mouse, as well as the injectors from working with pharmaceutical companies and others to really use the process of design thinking and coming up with new products, new services, and new solutions by having a diversity of people's thought processes and different schools, literally schools of thoughts and schools of education within Stanford and elsewhere. So I welcome you, Dennis, after that relatively short introduction, which I didn't do you justice because I know you're very humble.
Well, thanks, Nicole, Michael, for having me back in. That was fun a few days ago. And so, yeah, happy to be back. And I see your little run of shows, so I've kind of prepared answers to those. Just a little aside, Michael, I am going to help Dr. Beanie with the DocSF. I think it's October 3rd or something like that.
Yeah.
So we're going to do another little session just like that at the University of California, San Francisco. So
that's great.
Any people interested in orthopedics, you could go to that conference. But anyway, yeah, I'm happy to be back and continue to kind of talk about how we approach things at IDEO and, well, kind of cross-generational, which clearly is sort of your theme. So I'm ready to kind of add to that. And if you want to see some of the some of the background I put up on the screen, you can go to that other session of mine, the first session. So does
Yeah.
that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I recommend people watch part 1 because it really sets the stage on the organization, IDEO, and how it got started, and kind of some of the extraordinary things it's had an impact on the world of business and just, medicine and everything else. So again, I'm plugging our own show with Dennis, part 1. So, Nicole?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again, Dennis, for joining us. As you had shared on the last segment that you were on the show with us, you talked about design thinking and innovation and the unique insights that you bring within IDEO, your organizations, as well as on some of your client projects, harnessing the generational diversity as a strategic advantage. Today, we want our listeners to listen to some of the things that you have woven into the organizational fabric when we look at technology and how that's shaping the different generations from how they're interacting, collaboration. You had also indicated that technology does serve as a bridge between generations, and you have leveraged from the strength that each generations bring to the table as your team meet in their huddles. It'll be a team of 3, 4, 5, applying the design thinking and design systems in order to bring to market an ideal product that will best serve your generational clients. Why don't you share with us, how do you use technology to shape the different ways your workforce interact and collaborate?
Okay, well, that's a kind of a rich question because I've got some opinions on that. Over the years, you see these big waves of technology come in. When we started the company, we did not own a computer. We couldn't buy one then in the late 70s. We got Apple IIs, and we started working on the Apple Lisa, and we started working on other PCs as part of our job. So we started getting them and trying to figure out how to use them. But
and invent them with a mouse, right?
yeah. So we designed the mouse before we had a computer that would use it, but it all came, and there's these waves of the computers, the desktops, and then the laptops and the portable, the handhelds, and then there's kind of the software that goes with them that connects them that we had to help design and build and learn. And then there's all the kind of the internet came along. That's another wave that what is that? What's that helpful for? And so you have to kind of explore that and learn that and embrace that. And then there's just all the networking, the social kind of networking that came on as another wave. There's big giant wave of AI coming on right now, which I'm trying to learn about, trying to use a little bit of ChatGPT just to see and make drawings or sketches with it. And it's just very new. One thing, to help collaboration, we have a lot of different ways to communicate. In fact, there's so many ways that in a certain day, I made a list of this. I'll get emails, probably hundreds. I'll get texts, I'll get Slacks, I'll get direct messaging in LinkedIn, direct messaging in Instagram, direct messaging in X. I'll get WhatsApp messages. There's general LinkedIn, general Instagram, general X. I mean, there's just a proliferation. That's 10 right there. Right. And sometimes I don't see what I'm supposed to be seeing. So there's a funny. The companies really embrace Slack for internal back and forth teams. But I have to admit, I'm sorry to admit that I'm a bit of a slacker. But it doesn't feel as natural to me as email. So I have to use it, and I learn a little bit, but something about it is not as intuitive, and I just haven't used it enough to be really good at it. And I can't find what's new or what it's great for teams and recording a whole bunch of material and leaving it in somehow in the the cloud. But it just seems like for that's what's going on, and for people that aren't completely digital natives like the 20 somethings are and the 30 somethings, it's valuable to think about how to bring everybody along when all of these, like every 5 years there's some new kind of a way to communicate, and so we don't drop anything, we just add it. And so
Right.
like I say, there's
Right.
maybe 10 or a dozen different ways to communicate, and I think that's an interesting challenge to kind of grapple with.
Yeah, I mean, to really kind of be somewhat humorous, but going from the tin can and the string that you played as a kid, I'm not that old, and the other was a rotary phone when you show someone a payphone or whatever. So not only do we have these 10 plus ways of communications, the others that in really almost generational to generational, if you show a telephone, what do you call it, a phone booth, or even some other technology or Palm Pilot or whatever, people will say, what is that? That's history. And that would have been only 25 or 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then the acceleration, I think it was Gordon Moore's law, right? That everything basically accelerates every 18 months or so. And I think we're probably even more aggressive on that. And AI, as you touched upon, it kind of blows the mind, that acceleration that's having. And many folks will say that we're at not only the very beginning innings as a baseball analogy, but we're really at the first batter up. And so we have such a long way to go of using the AI technology and how that will be used in the future.
It's quite interesting that you have started just touching on the challenges with the use of various technologies in the workforce, especially having a cross-generational workforce, from adaptation, communication preferences, work-life boundaries, and I'm sure there are other concerns and challenges that you may have. But looking at this through the lens and some of the themes that we touched on during our last segment when we had you on the show around empathy, creating an inclusive workplace culture. Because you're right, the generations that are coming in, they're more technology native versus previous generations. And we want to, as we go forward, we certainly want to focus on shared purpose, embracing the multiple communication channels, as you say, just gets added, nothing is getting removed, as well as celebrating our complementary strengths. Talk to our listeners about what strategies would you recommend for creating a workplace culture that values and support employees across different generations.
Well, I believe I'm a kind of a fast learner, but like I say, I'd be the first to admit that the pure number of sources of information and message platforms is really hard to sort out and keep up with. I'm kind of hoping AI agents, the AI will help understand all this and bring it to you in a way that you can respond in a timely manner. I'm missing messages, I'm missing meetings, I'm missing this and that. So I think there's a big hope. AI is going to help with many things, but I think it's valuable and important for companies, organizations to help people understand how to use new ways of communication, new ways of kind of understanding how different sources of information come to you. I was also thinking about, this will probably resonate, the big number of streaming services that, I mean, it's kind of almost comical. Like there's, you have 1,000 channels on Comcast or something like that. But
Right.
then you're subscribing to Netflix, to Amazon Prime, to Max, to Disney Plus, to Hulu, to YouTube TV, to Sling, to PBS Passport, to BritBox. And there's Flipboard and there's Google's, and they're bringing, so there's a giant you're paying for all these separate services, and you can't figure out. You have to go to Google sometimes and which platform is this series playing on, just to find that out. So I think AI is going to play a strong role in helping sort through and summarize or help you understand where you should be going or looking at, or what you should be listening to. I think that's one thing that strikes me. Another thing is, reward or allow for lots of opportunities for experienced people to mentor younger people, and kind of reward that, make that, and that. So we're fairly good at that, but we could get better at that. And there's something we've tried that I think is quite smart. We didn't invent it, but we heard about it, which is called reverse mentoring, where you have young people mentor more experienced people in some of these new ways of technology, new ways of communication, new habits, and new words, even new ways of describing things. And it needs to be a two-way street. You really need to have people mentoring each other from across generations. I think that would be valuable. We do some of that, but you have to kind of overtly go out and try to learn from. Like, I've got this whole crew of 20-somethings and 30-somethings that are taking over the company, that are really very facile in AI and other technologies coming on. So I'm trying to learn from them, go to their seminars, ask them questions, get them to show me what's going on and kind of coach me. But so this reverse mentoring concept, I think, is valuable to think about in organizations.
No, I think that's a great point. And I remember that, the old saying is, you said 1,000 or 500 things on TV and nothing to watch, right? And the migration that has happened over the last 34. I mean, the television didn't come into being really until the 1950s, which to some people is a long time ago, but still, that's relatively recently. But I think that you're hitting on the mentoring of both reverse mentoring or cyclical, or however you want to call it, of mentoring, because in just listening, Dennis, it gives you an opportunity to use what digital natives use, right? Which is that, Generation Z and probably back half of the millennials have used as far as a tool, but then able to tap into your 45 years of, experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and interactions with different generations of, leveraging technology to help you do that. And because there's such an information overload and data, and there's no way you could ever, any human being could probably do, take in and condense it and make it concise, and for whether that is for management or that's product development and design and the like, but really having both or multiple generations, right, that can use your experience, your wisdom, and what you've expertise you've gained over the years, and then someone who's coming up in their 20s and 30s to help you leverage the technology. So there's a win-win-win-win, and ultimately it's a win for those that you serve, your clients, and the world in general.
Yeah, Go ahead, Nicole.
No, I just wanted to echo a sentiment you had shared in one of the conferences, where you've stated the most innovative cultures are those that recognize diversity of all kinds, including generational diversity, as a creative asset rather than a management challenge. Further elaborate for here. You're hitting it on the nail. To Mike's point, you're being intentional on the way you go about designing your team structures that leverages diverse perspectives and the skills that different generations bring. You also highlighted a few minutes ago, not only do we recognize, but we also reward cross-generational mentoring in both directions. Talk
Right.
about reverse mentoring and mentoring, but elaborate some more for folks so that we understand that intergenerational collaboration is a strategic advantage.
Okay, well, we that's a good way to put it. I believe in that. We as a consulting innovation company, we have to put together teams often to work on client work. I mean, that's what we do. That's what we offer, and so we go out of our way to put different disciplines on each team and different experience levels on each team, which so that you get all the advantages of different perspectives for different disciplines. I think we have 10 or 12 different disciplines or more at the
Wow.
company now, and we have we have experience levels that vary from about 50 years or 60 years of experience. So you want to mix and match carefully. So we have a group called team building that when we have new projects come in, they carefully get together and look at what the client needs, what the proposal that we've written says, and then carefully try to find the right people for the team to be successful. And so it can be engineers of all different types. That can be industrial designers or business designers or graphic designers, interaction designers, software designers, so experienced designers, strategy designers. So I mean, there's lots and lots of different people. Many people have a couple of these things in their job description. So it makes it slightly easier to mix and match people because, well, one of the, it's always often who's available too.
Right.
Because you can't, in a big consulting company, there's no upside to having people sit around waiting for their next project.
Right.
So there's a lot of effort to try to keep people applied and doing what they really want to do, which is inventing products or services or experiences, strategies, and that's what they came for. And so I think of them, our crew is like high octane race car engines, and if you don't give them the right fuel, they won't work very well. So that's
right.
Another analogy.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Thanks for highlighting the importance of moving beyond a one-size-fits-all approach for your employee experience. Because you're right, there isn't a one-size-that-fits-all. Just given the fact you have different generations that have distinct needs and at different life stages, and also looking to be engaged at every step of their career and rethinking this traditional approach and how work arrangements needs to be done, as well as embracing the different career development that's required for your respective employees. But Dennis, what are some of the tidbits you can share with our audience, and how you go about prioritizing the employee experience? You started hitting on that about understanding the needs and offering flexibility. I would imagine that there's some personalized pathways for different folks on their own individual growth as they're evolving across their career stages. How do you go about prioritizing employee experience and their well-being while accommodating such a vast and diverse generational needs and meeting your clients' expectations?
Well, we in each one of our locations, we have an office in San Francisco and Chicago and Boston and London and Shanghai. We have an experience team that makes the location a great place to work, and that's just accommodations for team spaces, rooms for team spaces, and having all the right supplies, and having lunches 2 or 3 times a week, and having sort of happy hours at the end of the day, or breakfasts at the beginning of the day, or when clients come in, you really treat them like kings and queens, because, well, they are.
Yeah.
And so you really help them, with tours and with lunches, and we have a rooftop kind of experiences sometimes in many of our offices. So that's one thing. But then there's the team building, and there's a real effort to have an annual review, a 360 review, that everybody gets advice and experience from all the people that they've worked with. It comes in, it can be some of it's person to person. Others, it's can be anonymous. So if you want to so people get honest feedback. And so there's a lot of effort to kind of do that every year and distribute, and sometimes even 6 months for the newest people, because they're growing quickly, and you really have to accommodate the desires and wishes and energy level of new employees, that, or else they'll go somewhere else. So you really want to make the experience for them as good as you can get, but ideally you're really putting them on strong, good projects, because that's what they're here for. That's what we all are here for at IDEO. And so they're learning, they're getting to meet new people, they're getting to work carefully with the client, whatever the projects are, and they're every 6 to 12 months you're getting a review of how you're doing, and suggestions and what you might do to improve. And people are really hungry for that, because they want to learn and they want to grow, they want to expand their capabilities and their experience levels. So there's a lot of effort to make the experience of people at every experience level good, better. Eventually you move up to being a partner, and so there's probably, I don't know, 40, 50 partners now out of 350.
Wow.
These are people who've been there pretty long time, or in a few cases more senior people that we've brought in. But though that the same things apply, you have to have reviews, partnership reviews. You have to have feedback on how they're doing. You really try to spread out the influence of senior people with, like I say, mentoring or guiding project teams, or especially doing business development. By the time you get to be senior, you have a lot of connections, you have a lot of experience, typically in 1 or 2 areas. So often you can like maybe 20, 25 years ago, I could really start focusing on health and medical kinds of, but there's design of high tech kind of design. There's design for toys, there's design for food, there's design for transportation. There's quite a few different categories, pretty much every category that you can. There's office equipment, office furniture kind of focus. And so as you get more experience, you're allowed to focus a little bit more in certain business categories if you want. If you don't, well, you don't have to. So
yeah, I'm curious, and you may we may or may not know the answer, but because you mentioned the U.S. office and the London office and the Shanghai office, is there any cross-pollination that happens there, and the challenges of time zones and language, the Queen's English and the the U.S. English, or or Chinese Mandarin or Cantonese? So number one, is there any cross-pollination that happens, or is any type of rotation? I'm just curious, and there may not be. It's just, I work on a global basis, so I'm always curious about that. And then the other is, are there challenges based on beyond the 10 different communication? The other, my son, who's in his 20s, does not use Facebook or Instagram, or they're all on TikTok, right? So, and I don't know if that's used for business other than marketing and promoting entrepreneur stuff. But anyway, I have a question.
Well, each of these locations, we call them hubs. It's kind of responsible for its own business, getting its own business and conducting its own business, and designing. But that being said, the team building stretches across the 5 locations, so that if one location has a whole bunch of business and can't do it, then you get help from other locations.
Okay.
And that can sometimes mean, especially for younger people that don't have a family to be home with, you can transfer them to Shanghai or to London, or to Chicago or Boston, and that's kind of a perk. Some people really like that. Sometimes you have to work across time zones with all these tools, and Slack and email and texting and WhatsApp and so on. So there's a lot of work to accommodate people's availability and time. So it's load leveling. Sometimes some locations don't have much work and others have too much. So you're trying to balance that. And yeah, the time zones are kind of crazy, but you just have to work around that, have late meetings or early meetings online. And the culture of Zoom, of course, because of COVID, it's very much a part of the fabric of the company. So those things get done pretty well these days, although we still try hard to get people to come into the office 2 or 3 days a week. Like Tuesday through Thursday is kind of ideal. And there's quite a bit of that seems to be slowly happening again. But you can't always do it, especially if you're getting people from another location to work on a project in a third location or a second location. So you have to work hard. It is interesting challenge, but somehow it seems to work.
Yeah, the other thing is, and this is probably the last, since really the internet and the interconnectivity globally, is that you're always on, and that's all ALLWAYS, always, meaning the technology that you mentioned with the 10 use of communications you've used. And believe it or not, in healthcare, as you well know, Dennis, they still use a fax. Which is insane.
That wasn't on my list, but it is still.
I know, but guess what? My doctor faxed something to me or whatever this week, and I remember my parents had an international consulting firm, and we had offices in DC, Florida, and California, but also in Singapore and Italy, and we had a thermal fax that would go in a drum. And that's going back to the 60s and stuff like that.
Wow.
So I think we've come a long way, and in many cases we haven't. So you're always kind of on. How do you discern, or maybe that's not the right word, how do you determine that, the different needs of the different generations of, not always being on, and some may want to always be on, if they, let's just say, I'm making a lot of assumptions, someone who's in their 20s wants to be more of a nomadic tribe person who wants to travel to Shanghai, Boston, Chicago, like early management consultants that come out of B school, or those that suddenly have family and want to have, let's have a break here once in a while. And I'm not always on through email, by texting, by Slack, and the like. I mean, is that a challenge that you see, over the past 45 years, and how that has evolved?
Well, yeah, we try to accommodate the needs of people as they state them. And so if you're up for a lot of travel, some people are, or some people enjoy that, then we try to, we often need that. But if you really have a growing family, young children at home, you can't do that all the time. So you try to accommodate projects that are that require somewhat less travel. There's always a balancing act, and again, this team building, or it also is kind of career building function that tries to understand what people want and what people need, and tries to match them with the kinds of work, the kinds of clients that accommodate these needs. But it's always a bit of a 50-50, and so sometimes you just have to get people to travel, and some other times you just have to get people to work in one place for a long time, because it's a big client, or a big client relationship with a lot of work. So it varies a lot, but you just have to you try to do what your team member, your employee wants. You try to accommodate that so that they're happier, they're more fulfilled, and they stay. You want these experienced people to, stay and be happy and keep doing it. So,
Dennis, you have reflected on the future of work, emphasizing that generational diversity is not a problem to solve, but an opportunity for all of us to embrace. Your organization at IDEO have thrived using the full humanity of your people. We want to applaud you for that, as well as embracing all generations and bringing their various design experiences that help everyone contribute their best. What are some of your key takeaways as we close out this segment? One nugget or two that you would like to share with our listeners as you continue to evangelize embracing generational diversity as strategic, build connective technology where we may want to choose and implement tools that will bridge and reinforce generational cohesion, as well as the cultivate that learning culture for folk career development and enhancement. What are the final one or two nuggets that you would like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I think organizations should really encourage and enable good mentoring across generations, and they should also really lean into sort of training across generations for new technology, new approaches, and so the kind of keep an open mind about what's coming, what's new, how new ways of working, new ways of communicating are coming, are being introduced, so that everybody's kind of on the same page. And so that means devoting some sort of part of your resources to having these groups that accommodate people's career needs and desires, and people's needs to work in certain ways or with the time they have. And so it's valuable as an organization, as a company, to have some focus on the needs of your employees, whatever their experience level is, whatever their generation is. So that would be my bits to kind of close out here.
Dennis, thank you for joining us here again on the FlowRy Show, where we had the opportunity to learn and gain your insights and how we go about creating a bridge between generations. To our listeners, as we navigate the tapestry of life, remember that every chapter offers new lessons, opportunities, and connections. Let's embrace the journey, cherish the moments, and continue to learn, grow, and inspire. Dennis, it has been a pleasure for us having you here today.
Yes, Dennis, you've got a wonderful legacy that you've built over 45 years, and for another 45 years and beyond. that you have impact not only on IDEO, but really the world around you, and what's 3 or 4 continents. We applaud you, and we thank you for your time and sage advice and insights.
All right. Well, thanks very much for having me on. It's been an honor to share some of my experience, and I think this is a lovely concept of a show to kind of bring these sorts of concepts to life. So I'm happy to be contributed, and maybe have me back again sometime.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you. And to our listeners, stay tuned until next time. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.